Okay, here's the dollar. 1968, it says up there, you can cash this dollar bill for an amount of silver. Just go to the Federal Reserve, they'll give you the silver. Johnson took that out. He just said, nah, no more. So we were left with just gold. Federal Reserve note, 1928. It was good till, a $20 bill, good till 1971 when President Nixon, I think he peeked into the vault at Fort Knox and said, I don't think we have the money. And he got rid of the gold standard. Now, we don't know what's in Fort Knox. It hasn't been audited in a long, long time. Some people say that Nixon shipped a lot of that gold out. There's been a couple of big scandals recently. In China, it got a whole load of gold-plated tungsten. Because it weighs the same. A little bit of gold on the outside. They did a test of it. And they traced the number back from that gold bar, those thousands of gold bars. And it came back to the mint. The number came back to the U.S. Mint. So how much tungsten do we have now? When Clinton was the president, they ordered, Robert Reich ordered hundreds of thousands of bars of tungsten. Where did it go? Does the press care? Do you read anything about it? We may not have, those soldiers out there may be guarding nothing. But we'll never know because there's never been an audit. I think there was back in the 20s. The only thing they audit now is tables and chairs. They're not allowed into the vault, so we know how many chairs they have, know how many tables they have, but we don't know how much gold, if any, they have. So now we have the $20 bill. We have Federal Reserve notes. Now, instead of going to the Federal Reserve and saying, I need $20 worth of gold, you go say, I want to get some real money, and they give you 2 10s. 4 5s. That's it. You're stuck with it. It's backed by nothing. And that's got to be changed. No guns for Negroes. That's a very popular, the guy that showed me this was a black guy. He was the mayor of a city outside of Chicago. And he had the headlines and all that stuff, and that was the headlines in the newspaper. No guns for Negroes. And it was after the Civil War, when the war was over, and the states were getting their abilities back to pass legislation. In a couple of years they weren't allowed to. A lot of the southern states passed laws that black people, Negroes, at that time they were called, could not have guns. Now some of the reason may be they were afraid that maybe they're going to come and shoot them. Maybe they owed them a licking, as they said. But that's where, prior to that, to the 1860s, there was no governmental regulation of firearms in the United States. Yes, if you went into the saloon and they said no guns in the saloon, you couldn't go in. But this was a law, and no Negroes could have guns. Somewhere along the line, somebody figured out, hey, this could be a moneymaker. So people have got to get a license, get a gun. Before that, there was none. So the black guy was laughing. He said, well, who really got the rights? Did I come up or did you go down? Because you lost your rights. You didn't have to get a license until they started to restrict us. The other part of that is, the other side of it is, marriage licenses. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, none of them had marriage licenses. There was no marriage licenses in the United States. It wasn't until after the Civil War, they wanted to keep blacks from marrying whites, or whites marrying blacks. There was a whole list. Mulattoes, Asians, Filipinos. There was a whole list of people who couldn't intermarry. Someone figured out at some point, hey, we can make money off this. The question is, if you look at going back into the beginning, where your rights are. Who gave the privilege or the right to our government to have any kind of approval over your private life? Why should you have to go to the government and say, I want to get married? Please give me your blessing, and it's $20. And they don't have that right. They don't have that privilege. They've taken it, but it's none of their business. It's like the census. Is it any of their business how many toilets you have in your house? What the heck are they going to ask that for? Why are they still asking about race? You know, in the last census, 2000, the biggest question that wasn't answered was the answer of mixed race. A black guy marries a white girl marries a Filipino, this guy marries whatever. You had to either be black, or Hispanic, or Asian, or Eskimo, a couple of choices. But a lot of people are mixed. The broader question is, why are we still asking that question? No, it's about money. They tried to get race taken off the census last time. And the organizations like La Raza, NAACP, and a lot of these other racial organizations fought it because they get their government money based on their percentage of the population, and they were afraid that if they went from 12.2 to 9.8, they'd lose millions of dollars. So it's all about money. My thing is, it's none of their business. We don't ask them their sexual orientation. We don't ask them their religion. Who cares? I don't care if there's 12.2, 12.3 black. What do I care? It'll make any difference. Okay, election fraud. Computerized. What was the name of that movie? The guy wins with the election. They tamper with the program or something. He wins. Man of the Day. Who's? Well, it doesn't make any difference. If you look at election fraud, they're going more and more to computerized versions of elections. The machines. There is not a computerized voting machine in this country today that cannot be hacked. You know, the big issue was when Bush ran against Gore, and Gore was going to concede. You know, it looked like he lost Florida, he's going to concede. Well, on his way back, for his concession speech, he got a call from somebody and said, hey, by the way, in Dade County, in a couple of the machines, you started with a minus 25,000. That's what started that whole thing when looking at the chads and all that stuff. Somebody had hacked into the computer, and instead of him starting at 0, he started at a minus 25,000. You take a look at some of the, Georgia is a computerized state, and very little paper backup. Right? In the 2008 election, 15,000 dead people voted. How good is that for computers? How does a dead people even operate a computer? Pennsylvania, 2008, our old friends Acorn. 57,000 fraudulent applications to vote. Now multiply that just by 20 states. Million votes. If they're doing that in that state, they're doing it in the other states as well. The Voter Registration Act, 1993, also known as the Motor Voter Law. If you somehow are an illegal alien and you get a driver's license, if you got one in New York State, you can vote. Because when you go to renew your license, all you have to do is check off the box. Yes, I'm a citizen. No proof. Nothing. Check the box off. Probably last year, probably 1 million people voted in our elections that weren't eligible. A lot of them in California and some of the bigger cities. And that's how they do it. They get automatically registered by checking a box. I mean, you had to get your birth certificates years ago.